A James Bond film without stellar action is like cinnamon rolls without the cinnamon. However much I like to look at these films with a more analytical eye, they are thrill rides, meant to entertain audiences first and foremost, and the Bond series has done a remarkable job at that. There are a ton of great scenarios utilizing the full potential of all filmmaking departments ranging from stuntmen to special effects, and for me, these rank as some of the best overall scenes in their respective films. Today, we're going to have a friendly competition between what I think are the best action scenes from each of the 27 films, with each film being represented by what I think is its best action sequence. This will be a round-by-round single elimination, with each matchup containing 3 contestants. This format was suggested by my wife, and I think it'll be a fun change of pace. Any and all action scenes may count, provided it's a distinct set piece and not a momentary blip inside of a larger scene like a stunt. For instance, in The Man with the Golden Gun, Bond has a car chase against Scaramanga in Bangkok. Its entry would be the whole sequence, from Goodnight being locked in the boot until Scaramanga evades Bond in a car plane, not just the barrel roll towards the end of the sequence. There are so many good action scenes that it broke my heart to realize how many would not be represented here. So, here's a montage of all the scenes that were the runner-ups for their respective films. Alright, let's get started with the tournament proper. Each of these pairings were determined by a complicated algorithm whose finer details would be impossible to explain to the casual viewer. But rest assured, I did my homework, and there's absolutely no margin for error to be found here. In this first battle, we have the finale to Dr. No, with Bond fighting the Good Doctor and destroying Crab Key, the final duel between Bond and Scaramanga in The Man with the Golden Gun, and the tank chase from GoldenEye. I think it's safe to say Dr. No has to lose this fight. The early Bond films had stylish action over high-octane extended sequences, but since the ultimate determining factor is my enjoyment of each sequence, this fight just can't compete with the later material. The finale between Bond and Scaramanga is a highlight of the entire film for me, and I chose this over the car chase for 2 reasons. 1, it doesn't have a slide whistle ruining a great stunt, and 2, the actual car chase itself isn't all that special amongst the rest of the series. I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat here as Bond slowly makes his way through the funhouse, and we know Scaramanga can come out of any corner. Alas, the tank chase from GoldenEye must win this fight. Whether you count the earlier archive shootout as part of the sequence or not, it's a marvelous spectacle. We've never seen Bond barreling through city streets quite like this before, and it contains almost everything you'd want to see out of this scenario. So, an easy win for GoldenEye this time. The second battle contains 3 strong contenders: the fistfight on the Orient Express from From Russia with Love, the Lotus car chase from The Spy Who Loved Me, and the car park sequence from Tomorrow Never Dies. This was an impossible choice, as you have my favorite hand-to-hand combat sequence in the entire series versus 2 great and inventive car chases. I never want to resort to just picking later scenes because they contain more action in them. There's a balance that must be struck between a great idea, the execution of it, and the overall length of the sequence. With that in mind, however great the fight scene on the Orient Express is, it is ultimately just another fistfight on a train, and we've seen so many of those before and since. Granted, this is probably one of the best from any film, but someone has to lose here. That leaves us with the car chases. I personally cut the sequence in Spy off when Bond's Lotus becomes the submarine, as there's a prolonged lull in the action before we pick back up again, making it feel like 2 separate sequences. Even combined, I can't get over how fun and imaginative the car park sequence from Tomorrow Never Dies is. Sure, it's cheesy, but there are few Bond action scenes that don't have a certain amount of cheese to them. Controlling the car from the back seat with the phone is a simple change that allows for more variety in the individual beats. You can shoot out the windows and have a rocket go through the car, for instance. You can end the sequence with the car flying into the storefront of a car rental space with Bond having bailed out before. And that's not to include the various gadgets the BMW has, such as spikes, reinflating tires, rockets out the roof, and a convenient wire cutter. This scene encapsulates everything I love from the Brosnan-era action scenes, and I can't help but smile the entire time. In this bloody battle, Tomorrow Never Dies reigns supreme. The third battle has Goldfinger's Bond vs. Oddjob fight in Fort Knox, the final laser battle in Moonraker, and the Thames boat chase from The World Is Not Enough. Moonraker is not a film I enjoy for its action, but I can still derive plenty of enjoyment from its various offerings. I'll take a fantastic Bond fistfight against one of the best henchmen over the stunning visual effects of Moonraker, though. Unfortunately, Brosnan wins out for a third time with a fantastic boat chase. Not that the Fort Knox fight isn't a great and worthy follow-up to the Orient Express fight from the previous film, but the Thames boat chase has the same kind of energy and cheese that the Tomorrow Never Dies car park sequence has, and for many people, it's the highlight of the whole movie. The Q boat is full of great gadgets and turns what could have been another standard boat chase into a dynamic, moving wonder of a sequence. Bond can execute barrel rolls, dive underwater, and drive over city streets with a jet out the back. I know it's overall far sillier than Goldfinger's offering here, and that's going to come back to bite it here in a round or two, but funnily enough, I don't always gravitate towards realism for my entertainment. If we all did, I imagine there'd be no room in our film libraries for musicals. Don't take it too personally, Goldfinger. You're a great film regardless of not being first place in your action scenes. Our fourth battle's contestants are Thunderball's Chateau fight, For Your Eyes Only's Cuban car chase with the Citroen, and Die Another Day's hovercraft chase. Like Goldfinger, Thunderball isn't a film widely known for its action, and is often criticized for the quick-paced editing that actually obscures some of the action. I think the Chateau fight is the best presented bit of action in the film, with both solid choreography and a great capper of a Q gadget moment. The Die Another Day sequence features a craft we've not really seen in an action scene before, and it's an energetic way to start the movie. Yet, these two don't hold a candle to the Citroen car chase. This sequence cleverly subverts our expectations for another standout gadget-laden car showcase and substitutes in a very pathetic and unstylish car. Even Bond has to take a second before getting in. But this chase is accompanied with some of the best music in the film. It showcases Bond's intelligence at using a car that doesn't have the extra features, and shows that you don't need gadgets to make a sequence fun. If anything, I'm amazed this car can hold its own against some of the best gadget-laden cars of the series. So, here's to Roger Moore's first win in this competition. Battle number 5 is between Mata Bond's escape in Casino Royale 1967, the train fight from Octopussy, and Casino Royale 2006's African Rundown. As fun as Mata Bond's escape is, it is meant for humor alone, making it a fairly one-dimensional sequence. It's perhaps a foregone conclusion that Casino Royale 67 was never going to win this competition, but I must say this scene is a large reason for the whole Mata Bond section of the film being my favorite. The train fight from Octopussy is a scene that takes perhaps one too many cues from the excellent truck chase from Raiders of the Lost Ark a few years before, but that doesn't mean I'm not thrilled to watch it. Bond goes over, under, and climbs the side of the train carriages in an effort to warn Octopussy about the nuclear bomb, and it takes the combined efforts of Gobinda, Kamal Khan, and Grishka to stop him. But I've got to hand this victory to African Rundown. Maybe I was too young and uninformed at the time, but this was the sequence that made me aware of free running as a sport, and I love how it's a scene where the action tells us something about the characters. Malaka is a tricky bugger who uses his surroundings to his advantage. Bond at this point in his career is very much a blunt instrument that doesn't have time for style. And this leads to a fair bit of comedy and makes the chase feel like an actual battle that goes back and forth. Sometimes Malaka is about to get away, but then Bond pulls a move that closes the gap and he gains on him. Such a brilliant example of when action can serve not just a thrill quota, but character. The sixth fight is between You Only Live Twice's Volcano fight, Never Say Never Again's Count Lippy fight, and Quantum of Solace's opening car chase. As much as I'm engaged with Quantum's opening, the editing does drag it down, and it's ultimately just a very exciting variation of a standard car chase when you boil it down. The Count Lippy fight from Connery's Swan Song is a fun fight that uses the environment to its advantage. Plus, I can't totally hate a bout with the great Pat Roach, can I? However, the Volcano Layer battle is simply iconic and gives us the grand finale we would expect from a Bond film. There are several stages to this battle. It's set in one of the best villain layers of all time. It's got ninjas, a fist fight between Bond and a superior foe. There's a ticking clock element to it with the space capsule. And to top it all off, Blofeld blows it up and it becomes a race against the volcanic eruption. This is the kind of energy I wish the rest of You Only Live Twice had. And had this been the finale to the whole series, I would have been satisfied. Our seventh bout is between On Her Majesty's Secret Service's first ski chase, A View to a Kill's Golden Gate finale, and Skyfall's shootout in the titular Bond family home. Let me just say, I've really come around on the Skyfall finale. Yeah, I know everybody's made the Home Alone jokes, even director Sam Mendes mentions it in his commentary, but I'm a little baffled why some people would hold that comparison as the reason they don't like this scene. Using a house against the invaders feels like something Bond would do, particularly since they have almost no armory or ammo. Plus, Mendes consciously made this fight feel like it could have taken place in 1962, which is an awesome way to acknowledge the history of the series. Lastly, the traps are only a small part of the sequence. Most of it is more traditional shooting as the sun goes down. It just barely edges out the Golden Gate fight, though, as the only thing dragging that sequence down for me is some less than convincing rear screen projection. But it's a great tense fight and a wonderful final action scene for Roger Moore's Bond. Yet all of this pales in comparison to the riveting ski chase from Majesty's. Bond's escape from Piz Gloria is scored with some top-notch John Barry music, it has Blofeld leading the troops against 007, and it features some of the finest skiing footage you will ever see. Majesty's is the clear victor here. The penultimate confrontation of round 1 is between Diamonds Are Forever's elevator fight, The Living Daylights' ice chase, and Spectre's Day of the Dead. Bond vs. Peter Franks is one of my favorite fisticuffs of the Connery run, but it's a little lacking when compared with the other two here. The Day of the Dead opening of Spectre is my favorite scene of the whole movie. Bond's one-shot entrance into the film with such great music, a solid on-foot chase with a great helicopter fight at the end, are the key ingredients to this cocktail. Yet a gadget-laden Aston Martin is hard to beat. Timothy Dalton plows through the competition here with a tension-fueled battle with great gadgets, some of his best one-liners and gags, John Barry's wonderful bass-line version of the Bond theme, and of course, an imaginative ending with Bond and Kara in a cello case. There's no contest here for me. We've scared the living daylights out of the other two films. The final battle of round 1 is between the boat chase from Live and Let Die, License to Kill's truck chase, and No Time to Die's Cuba sequence. Other than Fight 2 of this round, this was the hardest selection to pick from. The boat chase loses out here due to a bloated runtime and because some of Sheriff Pepper's antics exist for their own sake and don't progress the scene in a meaningful way. But it is one of the best scenes from one of the most fun films. Now, the Cuba sequence is everything I want from modern Bond. It's a wonderful dance between Bond and Paloma, Nomi, and the remaining Spectre agents to get Oberchev. It's got humor, it's got some badass moments, particularly from Paloma, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. If anything, this is the blueprint I want future Bond films to look from to craft their action scenes. But even with this strong of an offering, I can't let this final bout go to anything other than the truck chase from License to Kill. Same as the car park from Tomorrow Never Dies, I'm smiling the whole way through. It's a little longer than you might expect, but it never becomes dull. It's an exciting way to close an action-packed film. You never get confused as to what you're looking at or where you are in the sequence. It contains some jaw-dropping moments, some of them were unscripted, and I'm actually tense through the whole scene. Again, a shame No Time to Die and Live and Let Die had to come across this as their contender. But I have nothing but love for this truck chase. So there's the results of round 1. Alright, on to round 2. This first battle happens to be a Brosnan-only fight. We have the tank chase, the car park, and the Thames chase. The tank chase has spectacle on its side, and it's become more iconic thanks in no small part to the Bond video games, which love to use tanks over and over again. The Thames chase is perhaps the greatest water-based action scene in all of Bond. There's a great sense of progression in its story. We start off with the attack at MI6, Cigar Girl having the upper hand. Bond destroys the gun on the back. Cigar Girl cuts him off. Bond then improvises a shortcut to catch up to her. And finally, Cigar Girl realizes she can't win this fight. However, I've got to give this to the car park, simply for being more tailored for a Bond film. I can imagine a lot of action films and series that could have had a great tank chase. And while the Q-boat is distinctly Bondian, the whole sequence loses out for being a touch overplayed in its silliness, but hey, that's just my call. Only in a Bond film could you conduct an entire car chase from the back seat with a phone and with such style. There's a lot of cheese here too, but there's never a moment where I'm taken out of the action. It has a concentration on its central scenario that not even the Thames chase has. So, Tomorrow Never Dies moves on to the final round. The second confrontation has A Drive in the Country from For Your Eyes Only, Casino Royale's African Rundown, and Twice's Volcano Lair. Sure, the Casino Royale scene runs at such a high throughout, but I've got to give this one to the Volcano Lair. Such a big and impressive battle cannot be overtaken that easily. Before we leave A Drive in the Country, let me just say I'm sorry to see it go. And I wish more Bond films outside of the Roger Moore era would remember to have this much fun with such a different scenario than what we usually see from the series. And our final matchup in round 2 is between the ski chase from Majesties, the ice chase from Daylights, and the truck chase from License. This is a bit tougher, as all three are highlights of their respective films, and all feel authentic to the spirit of the series. The ice chase unfortunately must exit here, as it can't compete with Majesty's ski sequence. I'm sorry, the majesty of the cinematography, the editing, and for setting the standard for all ski sequences and movies to follow is too much for Daylights to fully overcome. So that just leaves us with the truck chase to beat. This may be a controversial pick. I'm going with the truck chase. As impressive as the ski sequence is, there's not really an evolution to it. Aside from a situation change up at the end with Bond choking out a guard, it largely rides the same high throughout, although that's one high of a high. Also, this is extremely nitpicky of me, but I never understood how the death screens from the two guards going over the cliff don't alert the rest of Blofeld's crew. It's down to the wire here, folks. We have here 3 of the best and finest action scenes in all of Bond. Honestly, you could make a case for any of these being the winner. The volcano lair is the mother of all Bond finale shootouts. The car park has the best use of Q gadgets in the series, and the truck chase is a marvel of a Rube Goldberg action sequence. At this stage of the competition, the race is so tight that any deficit may cause the demise of the scene. In this case, the volcano battle ends with some of the worst volcanic eruption visual effects I've ever seen, and there are some shots that are obvious models of the base blowing up. So these small dents leave the volcano lair accepting a well-deserved 3rd place position. The remaining 2 are truly excellent candidates for this spot. Both make the most of their respective scenarios, both have a great balance between tension and humor, and both make for exciting viewings apart from their respective films. However, since I refuse to end this with a tie, I do have some slight, totally biased reasons why one wins over the other. And no, it has nothing to do with which Bond actor is my favorite. I'm declaring the winner of this totally objective contest to be the truck chase from License to Kill. The reason is because this finale has Bond working with someone else, and that someone else is pulling their weight. I'm always more impressed with an action scene that has multiple protagonists you are following, and it's able to keep track of them and keep you invested. It's a slightly more complex sequence to me than the car park, and it contains what is perhaps my favorite fist bump to the air moment in any Bond film. And lastly, and certainly the most superficial of all justifications, any Bond action scene that includes the Bond theme as incidental sound within the scene earns itself a pat on the back. Well, this was fun. I know there will be plenty of disagreements here, and feel free to voice your objections. Just try to remember, as always, this has nothing to do with facts, but mere enjoyment on my part. In any event, the Bond series has always featured top-notch sequences that are some of the best in the business. Honestly, it wouldn't have been difficult to go all the way to 100 with a traditional ranking. And keep in mind, I just chose the best single action scene from each film, just so that each movie could be represented in this video, as is my tradition. That doesn't mean I think the Mata Bond escape or the Dr. No finale are in my top 27 scenes in the entire series. There are plenty of other action scenes that I think are better, from the boat chase in Moonraker to the La Parra shootout in Spy and the Norway sequence from No Time to Die. I wonder what exciting material we have to look forward to from the coming Bond films from Amazon, and I hope they are just as wonderful as many of the past examples have been.